sack by Ohio State. From his own end zone. Again, ball's in the air, and it's a score. Still Chambers.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Pressure again. It's picked up. Duggan, though, running out of time. He's got a lot of space. He can run again. Max Duggan, first down. Tight runs the sideline. It is finally shoved out of bounds. Max Duggan on the ground has been the story of this drive.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Milton right up the middle. Padding the lead for Georgia. To the house. 44 yards.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Instead, he goes left side, and it's caught. No signal, yes. Touchdown, Donovan Edwards.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Plenty of time. Take your time, fellas. You're 10. Relax. You're 9. Griffin Kale. 41-yard effort. Middle of the field for the win. Snap, hold, kick. Griffin Kale. Plenty on it. And Griffin Kale has nailed it. Wow. How about that, boys? The Frogs survive here in Waco. Kale nails it.
Now, here's Paul Catalina.
Alongside Jacob Wilson here on a special holiday week episode of Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Garrett Ross over there throwing switches for us. And
yes, he is.
We have a lot to talk about today. We have a ton of guests. The last highlight you heard was my favorite highlight of the year by any radio personality, and he's on the show today, Brian Estridge, our good friend. Mm-hmm. And not Jacob, I know it was sad for Baylor fans, that particular highlight.
Yes, it was.
But he was just so smooth. Like, he knew exactly, like, it was where preparation hits, opportunity there, and he knew what they were doing. And those of us watching it, you and I were here going like, what is he doing? And then like Sonny Duck's like, no, just go ahead.
I mean, the call and the play were both very, very smooth, much to the chagrin of Baylor Nation.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got college football playoff. We could not get a Michigan Rider today. Unfortunately, our show falls this morning right in the middle of Jim Harbaugh's press conference. So could not get a Michigan Rider. We're getting a Georgia Rider right after their press conference. So it's all kind of, working it out. So
thank you, Kirby Smart, for freeing up the writers for us to get a word in.
I think it's just we pushed it because I initially asked about Georgia earlier and TCU, like all the way it kind of works. But Brian Estridge will be here. So we got college football playoff tomorrow. We have big news for Baylor hiring a defensive coordinator, and Matt Pallage, a guy that they brought back. Also appears that they've hired, according to On3.com, a new linebackers coach. Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com, will talk about some of those hires and some of the other coaching moves and things going on. He's at 10:15 today. So we've got a lot, and we'll talk Ohio State with Joey Kaufman of the Columbus Dispatch as they get ready to take on Georgia tomorrow night in the college football playoff. So we'll focus a lot on the CFP, plus Jalen Peacher with Smokey for a few minutes at 9:45 today. But a lot going on. And look, last night in college football, not a great night for the Big 12.
No, it's been rough.
Not a great night for the Big 12. Now, look, I will tell you, as a person who is an alum of Florida State University and a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, I watched both those games back-to-back on an airplane coming back from Nashville last night, and I've never enjoyed a flight so much. So, although there was a time, because I got on the plane, and it was like the middle of the fourth quarter, and so when I got on the plane, I was tense. I wouldn't say I was in a good place, and I had a drink so I could calm down because I was like nervous. And I would think the people around me would be like, is this guy freaking out about something wrong with.
I mean, the flights have just been absolutely crazy this past week.
Are we having a Final Destination situation here where he kind of knows and none of us do? Also, some girl brought a Chucky doll onto the plane last night, and I was like, "What are you doing? Just letting him run around the plane?" Like,
I mean, it's always good to know that you can set the tone for an entire flight of people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, welcome to all those who are watching right now. This morning, Christian says on Wisconsin, we've got some news about the Badgers.
Yes, we do.
It's not official yet, but it's looking that way. Scotty B. R. Harris, thanks for hopping on this morning. Please tell your friends right now that we're on from 9 to 11. This will also replay, so if you're watching this later on today, it's replaying from 3 until 5. Today we're on until 11 o'clock, and then you can watch all the college football that you can stomach. But there's just so much going on. Right now, as we start out, I do want to talk about the travel things. You are here today, Jacob, because you got caught up in the Southwest thing.
Yes. Oh, gosh, darn it. I don't get to go to my wife's high school reunion.
Sometimes those things are fun, though.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun to have the idea of being shown off.
Yeah.
But we have a 9-month-old baby. And so traveling, especially with the way the airlines are acting up right now, it was just easier to say, you know what? No, let's stay home and not deal with it.
So last you saw me was the post-game show after Baylor got rolled by Air Force in the Armed Forces Bowl on Thursday night.
Yes.
So I went and got in a hotel in Fort Worth on Thursday night. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I got in the shower. Everything's fine. I get out. My fiance Amanda has called me 6 times in that 10 minutes. So basically more than once every 2 minutes, but every 90 seconds she's calling me. And so I get out and she's like, what is going on with you? I'm like, well, it's like 4:15. I'm in there 4:25. I'm in the shower. I was in the shower. It's like, well, your flight's been canceled. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm kind of freaking out. And she goes, look, and she's, it's tense, it's high. She says, look, I've already found a flight on American for you. Here it is. Book it. Go to it, put this flight number in, book it right now. So I got on an American flight that was 4 hours later. But if you know anything about Dallas, you also know that American and Southwest do not fly into the same airport.
Nope.
So then that's going to change my whole plan of attack on the return. So I get to the airport and Amanda says, we probably should change our flights on the way back so that we don't have to drive over to the other airport to get your car, take an Uber or something. So that's a good idea, and it was late. We got back really late last night. And so we did that. So I will tell you this, even though I will be, because that has been a lot more money, especially on parking and everything else on this flight, I will be seeking recompense from Southwest for this. But
you're not the only one, Paul.
I'm not the only one. I'll be in a long line of people. But I did manage to stay ahead of the craziness a little bit. But when I did land in Nashville on Friday, because there were 2 things going on. It was, of course, bitter cold and a frozen hellscape. So they were having some problems with some of the jetways and the hydraulics froze. And we couldn't get into the jetways, but also because there were so many Southwest flights that weren't leaving, they didn't have anywhere for anybody to go.
Yeah.
So it was like a bar that's really packed. It was like 1 in, 1 out.
Uh-huh.
That was how it was going for that. But I did make it home, made it safe, and good luck to the actual people who work for Southwest Airlines and coming through this. I will say this: I've been a loyal Southwest flyer for a long time.
So have I.
The people who work for them are great people. The people who run that company are probably not our favorite people in America right now. But the people who work there, the pilots, the flight attendants, everybody else, the people who work at the desk, all of them are great. And they're always great. And they always have been. And they are suffering this right now, just like the rest of us. And probably worse because it's the place that they work.
Yeah, I lived in Hawaii for 4 years. And that was the airline that I would always get on to come home. And as expensive as it is to travel to and from Hawaii, you know that. You're about to experience it.
Do it again, yeah.
Pretty soon, getting married. But, yeah, it was always a great experience flying Southwest, even though I had to connect and somewhere in California. But it was, it's just disappointing to see an organization that you heralded go through such a difficult patch.
Yeah, look, and look, everything that's coming to those executives at that company, just like that's coming to Ticketmaster and Live Nation, they're reaping what they sow right now. So, but yeah, I just for the people who work there, remember when you're complaining that if you're a pilot, if you're a flight attendant, especially for the person at the desk, you do not make these decisions. You don't. If you're the person on the phone, you don't make them either.
Yeah.
Some guy who makes millions of dollars has made this decision to F up your day. That's what he's done. So remember that when you're mad about it and you're traveling this holiday season. But let's get to college football. Bad night for the Big 12. It's kind of been a bad bowl season, save for Joey McGuire. Absolutely.
That was the one game I thought that
punishing Ole Miss.
I didn't think that Texas Tech would win that game. If anything, I thought that, Kansas or Texas would be the team that actually pulled out one of these wins.
Yeah.
And so, for Texas Tech to get a win like that against an SEC opponent, it was very surprising.
Yeah. Oklahoma played their best game of the year last night, really, in a loss. I mean, let's take a straw poll on the chat room and here. If you watched the Cheez-It Bowl last night, even though Oklahoma lost, that was the best that they've looked all year.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Hands down. I was really surprised about the way Oklahoma came out. I thought, you would match the energy. It was set up perfectly where you had, the brand on brand. But I was expecting Oklahoma to come out a little flat, kind of like they have all year, especially with some of the issues they've dealt with players hitting the portal and everything. But, man, Florida State just really turned it on. I've been impressed with them. I've only caught the Seminoles a couple times. Unfortunately, the first one was them giving LSU their first loss of the season.
Yeah.
But, man, let me tell you something. Daniels to Wilson is one of my
Jordan Travis
is one of my favorite combos in college football, hands down.
Yeah, they have Florida State had no opt-outs outside of Jamie Robinson and Jared Verse. That whole team's coming back. They're doing really well in the portal. They're going to try to make a move in the ACC next year. Mike Norvell has completely converted me. After the Jacksonville State loss last year, I was like, oh, man, I really wanted this guy to be the coach, and I'm really thinking because that was just all bad. But from that moment on, you can see, and it's – I hope this for Baylor and – I saw it last night in Oklahoma. There's a moment where you can start coaching confidently. Florida State is coaching confidently. Texas Tech is coaching confidently now. That was a very confidently coached game where you stop thinking this might work and you know that it will. If you do this, it'll work. And Lane Kiffin coaches very confidently whether that or not. And I want to talk about him in a second. But yeah, I think Joe McGuire's doing it. I think you've seen a couple teams. I think Kansas is really right now. The thing Kansas knows that Lance Leipold knows is he knows he's not going to stop a lot of people right now. So, but he knows that on the other end of it, even if they're behind like they were against Arkansas the other night, 2 good drives, and all of a sudden.
I think, when you look at that game, though, to me, while Kansas ultimately didn't get the win on the scoreboard, that was a win for their culture, man. You could build and do so much with just turning on that tape. It's impressive what Leipold's been able to do. It's unreal.
They did not quit in that game, and they've pretty much reestablished what everyone's known about Kansas all year. And that's if they got some defense, that team is going to compete and be very, very good.
Yeah. So, and I think the thing I learned from bowl season is who is, when you look at who's all coming back and who's set up, because right now it's so upside down. I had this idea I was going to talk about today about maybe they should move them to the first part of the season, but I got stuck on how do you pick who goes into them at that point. So then we were kind of a non-starter, but with all the opt-outs and everything, you have to guide through bowl season. What you do look at is the teams like FSU, like Oklahoma. Oklahoma was essentially playing a lot of the lineup you're going to see next year, save for the freshmen, and they're going to have to get some wide receiver transfers for sure. I think they've already got one anyway, but they're going to have to get some more wide receivers in there. But you saw what they're going to be. That's who Oklahoma's going to be pretty much next year. So I think that if you see those teams and they play really hard because those guys are going to be there, then that's what you can kind of build on for next year about this is about what the team's going to look like and see where they can improve if they can build on this. Texas last night just did not play well against Washington. And Washington's another team. That's a team that pretty much looks like it's going to next year.
Yeah. Texas
only maybe 70%, right? Because there's no Bijan Robinson. There was no Roschon Johnson last night. Jonathan Brooks, is the guy who's got to take over, and I think very highly of him. Xavier Worthy, they're like Steve Sarkisian even admitted in the pregame lead up to that game that look, he's got to kind of find where he wants to be. And so, I think that's kind of what Texas is going to look like, but I think more of what Texas is going to look like is what you saw down the stretch this year of what that team can do if they have the players in place, which, I mean, if recruiting classes mean anything, they probably do.
I think the problem with me watching Texas last night, and I didn't watch it for very long. I was in and out watching the Stars game, but I wanted to keep an eye on it, is Quinn Ewers and Worthy need to get on the same page. They need to do a lot of reps in the offseason because they were completely off. Ewers is so inconsistent, man.
Ewers was actually dropping some good bombs in there, and like the one that you keep seeing is the wide open pass that he dropped perfectly to Xavier Worthy, and he just dropped it. Mm-hmm. And that one you can't blame on a quarterback. I just don't think so.
Yeah. And look, Texas's quarterback culture is going to get invigoration. Arch Manning's coming in. We'll see. Look, Malik Murphy may transfer out after the spring if he sees how it's going to be. But let's not count that guy out either in all this about pushing and going somewhere, because he's been injured all year. Hudson Card's on his way to Purdue. There's a lot of quarterback movement that we need to talk about. There's transfer movement, but the quarterback movement obviously is the
one that messed up your top 5 initially today.
Yeah, it did. It did, because last night I was on a plane and something happened. Well, 2 things happened. One I found out about, one I did not. But one of them was in the top 5 because I thought he was going to go pro, and then now he's in the transfer portal and going somewhere else. But, yeah, I think that's what you kind of glean from bowl season is, who is all of that, right? And, who are you going to be in the coming years, or what your coaching staff thinks it's going to be. And granted, the coaching staffs are going to, fluctuate a little bit now as it is. All right, let's get to some of that news. Let's talk Matt Powledge right now.
Yeah.
Defensive coordinator coming back to Baylor. He was the safeties coach and special teams coordinator for 2 years under Dave Aranda. Went up, coached under Dan Lanning at Oregon this year, and was the co-DC there. And really, he's 35 years old, up-and-comer, really interesting, talented recruiter as well. I like this hire. I know that a lot of people, the initial, thing is like, oh, let's go hire this guy because we know his experience. But I think the name of the game in college football right now is who are the young up-and-comers who can recruit at the pace that you're going to have to, because it is a much faster pace than it even used to be, and it was never slow. Like in 1975, recruiting was exhausting, and then as that has gone on over this time, now.
I love the story of Bo Jackson. People would come to his house and look at the phone because Bear Bryant had called it. That's what recruiting was a lot like back in those days. But I like this hire for Baylor as well, because there's been a youth movement in football for years, especially in college football, and he was in charge of the room on that defense for Baylor when the likes of Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie were there. And so I think it's a great, great hire to bring back some of that magic that you lost this past season, coming off of a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, and I like the hire, and I know that he's not been a coordinator for all that long, but everybody's got to start somewhere, right? Yeah. Dave Aranda wasn't a coordinator, and then he was the best defensive coordinator in the country, last Thursday night notwithstanding, but I do trust Dave Aranda he is, and you heard it in the post-game press conference, he's very aware of all the things that he needs to do. They've got a lot, they've got the coaching staff, it seems, at least for right now, unless there's other people taking other jobs, pretty well set, because they have also brought in Christian Robinson from Auburn. He's going to coach inside linebackers. That was just announced this morning. He was at Auburn. He's at Florida, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Georgia. He played at Georgia until 2012. You probably remember him if you're a Georgia fan. Was a pretty good player. So he's been all over the SEC, and this is a good young up-and-coming coach as well. And again, like I said, the name of the game is youth right now. I'm not saying that old coaches can't hang, but I do think you're going to start seeing some of the other coaches, especially when you've made $5, $6, $7 million a year, $3 million a year for a few years. When you get to that point where you feel like this is not your game anymore, you're going to move on. I expect is like Bob Stoops was the first one. We haven't really seen anybody since then, but Bob Stoops knew it was coming. He knew. And he knew that like the world was changing a little bit. And he was like, I'll do something else. And part of it is also wanting to watch his kids play in high school before they got to Oklahoma.
I think it says something when he would rather coach in the XFL than he would at a legendary program like Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, the XFL he can control that. Like, that's controllable. Like, that is, it's this much time as opposed to, the entire year. You have dead periods where you can like sneak away on vacation, but as soon as the dead period's over, you got to start calling kids. Now you throw NIL and all of that into it. And transfer portal, you have to recruit your own roster almost 365 days a year, even though the portal's only open a couple times. Okay, look, Dabo Swinney said what I thought was a really corny thing at a press conference last week when they asked him about name, image, and likeness, and he said, we're building in God's name, image, and likeness. Okay, great. I'm glad that you're a man of faith, and I think that's great. But that guy just had a question. Like, you could answer it. I think Dabo Swinney is going to be that guy who's like, you know what? Like, this is not me anymore. And I don't think it's going to be any time, like, immediately, but 2-3 years down the line, if Dabo Swinney did the Bob Stoops, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think Mike Gundy's one.
Yeah, I think
you really got to watch Mike Gundy and Dabo. I think both of those guys are just like clinging on to the past, holding out to what lasts a little bit, you can squeeze out of it, man. But you could tell the game is starting to pass those dudes up.
Well, yeah, and like you can see the coach. Like, I don't mind. Like, Matt Rule got a little flack because he was like, "Look, if somebody wants to come here for NIL, that's not who we're looking for." I don't think that's what he meant. I think what he meant was, I want somebody who wants to be here, and I want somebody who knows that NIL will come once they get here.
That's not unreasonable either.
That's what every coach wants. Is like, look, we want somebody who wants to be at the program that's here, and then wants to get paid. Will know that they'll get paid when they do well, as opposed to, it's going to be hard to recruit guys, and this is for everyone. It's hard for Nick Saban when you walk into a room and he said, "Do you want to go to Alabama?" "Yes, but how much will you pay me?" Mm-hmm. Well, look, I'm recruiting you to be the quarterback, the linebacker, the wide receiver, the running back at Alabama. The money's going to be there if you play well.
Yeah.
And I get trying to maximize your value up front, but those are hard things that people have to negotiate through, that it's all new. So, again, not saying that, I'm very pro NIL, but I do think that there's going to be, like I would if I was a coach, I'd focus on, hey, look, we're going to make sure Texas Tech's got a great system. You're going to come in here and you're going to be on the you're going to get this much money for being on the roster. And then as you perform, there's going to be other things. And, you can go make your deals or whatever, and if you want that, but this is what it's going to be.
Your baseline.
And I think that's where it's going to probably wind up for a lot of teams, where the baseline is here. If you're this kind of recruit, you're probably going to be able to go to some of the big boys and get some money, but, like everything else can be, it'll take care of itself.
Hopefully Tennessee's listening to you right now, because allegedly that is kind of what poisoned their locker room this year.
Yeah. Well, and A&M for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they certainly had that problem, and it's going to be an issue. So that's what you kind of have to look for. And look, there might be a team like that 2012 Kentucky team of one and dones that won the national title that's going to be all NIL guys, and they might win. But what's happened since that Kentucky one and done team? Have any big other one and done teams done it? No. Veterans in college basketball have taken over. I think what you're seeing at schools like FSU, Notre Dame, right now, where guys are staying around, Alabama, Alabama, Georgia, all those, but
Duke, Washington,
Duke, Washington, where you stick around, those teams are going to win. Maybe not the national championship, but we're about to head to a 12-team playoff. Mm-hmm. So the veteran teams are probably going to do better in that.
And look, if you paid attention to the New York Yankees in the early 2000s, you should have learned that you don't win championships by trying to buy them. And I worry about the Rangers right now because it seems like what they're doing. But, it pretty much translates across all sports. You can't just throw money at a problem. Miami is probably the best case of it this year. in college football. You can't just go and throw money, especially at 17 and 18-year-old kids, and think that that's going to be what drives you to bring home a national championship.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have to get to Joey Kaufman in a second. After Jalen Petrie, I want to get into these transfer portal quarterbacks, one of whom is Tanner Mordecai from here in Waco. But there's been a lot of movement the last couple of days, and want to kind of go through some of that and get your thoughts, especially on the chat room. If you're up with us this morning, here in the pregame, Trevor, David, Steve, Michael, Ema, Peyton. Like Peyton says, bye-bye Worthy. Like a lot of people in Texas think he's going to get in the portal. And maybe that offense is not a fit for Xavier Worthy. Maybe it's not. Shocks me that it's not, because
it should be.
It's been a fit for a lot of, like, Steve Sarkisian ran that at Alabama. Do you want me to list the receivers that came out of that program that Steve Sarkisian coached directly that are –
one of them won a Heisman Trophy.
Won a Heisman Trophy, who's built exactly like you. Seriously,
like a toothpick.
Yeah, exactly. So, or any number of the guys that in that 4 years or whatever that Steve Sarkisian was there at Alabama are dominating the NFL right now. So
he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he knows. He's aware of coaching wide receivers. I think sometimes it's not a fit for guys. So. It'll be interesting because there are some really good wide receivers in the portal, like the Cephas kid that's, I think, from Kent State. Mm-hmm. He's got offers from, he's a Pennsylvania guy, but I do think that, Oklahoma is in on him. I bet you Texas is probably in on him because they have a huge need at that. But we got to take a break right here. When we come back, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch, breaks down Ohio State in the college football playoff. That's coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your home for holiday favorites for parties or time with the family, with various specials available while supplies last in store or ordering by phone, including 8 to 10 pound half spiral hams at $4.15 a pound, 12-pound pit hams at $4.35 a pound, 8 to 22-pound bone-in hams for $3.40 a pound, 14 to 16-pound whole raw turkeys at $2.85 a pound, and $4.80 a pound for 9 to 12-pound whole smoked turkeys, 6 to 8-pound mini pit hams for $5.99 a pound. Limit 4 of each item per customer. Call in advance to ensure availability or drop by Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Waco Custom Marketplace, your full-service butcher shop for customized orders or cuts of your favorite steaks or beef tenderloin or specially ordered prime rib roast. WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Old friend Joey Kaufman. Been hopping on the show, through different shows. Back, we covered USC. Of course, it feels like I feel with Joey, like I started covering the Cowboys, like after all the cool stuff happened. Joey gets to Ohio State where cool stuff happens all the time, but he missed when he covered USC. It's like the band after rehab, like doing the reunion tour. Like that's what I feel like with the Cowboys. He missed all the cool stuff at USC when he was covering them, but he's covered college football all over the place, covering Ohio State now for the Columbus Dispatch. And Joey, this Ohio State team heads into the playoffs with less expectations to win than anyone I can maybe remember, but is there maybe a little bit of 2014 comparison here, because nobody expected that team to win when they got to the playoffs either?
Yeah, I think the folks in Columbus have really latched on to that team as a glimmer of hope, because you're right. I mean, that was an Ohio State team that went into an SEC team's backyard, more or less. That was the Sugar Bowl, so it was certainly a crowd that leaned heavily toward Alabama, like this one here in Atlanta could lean heavily toward Georgia, and they pull off an upset, and that sort of kicked off the start of a great run at Ohio State, won the first college football playoff. So I think for a lot of folks, that really is what they're hoping for. Is a team like that. People didn't think they should be in the playoff. They backdoored their way in, and now the hope for a repeat.
Yeah. So Joey, they only lost, like, the funny thing to me about Ohio State is they only lost one game, but they got drilled by their rival in the second half of that game. It's the second year in a row. So why has that in particular changed the morale or the expectation around this particular game as they go in to play Georgia, a team that they recruit head-to-head with?
I think it's hurt the morale because Michigan is a team that's pretty similar to Georgia. They're a team that is going to run heavy personnel. They're a team that's going to have 7-8 guys in the line of scrimmage, and they're going to run downhill. And Ohio State had issues with that late in the game against Michigan. They had some breakdowns that led to 2 really long runs by Donovan Edwards. So I think for the most part, Jim Knowles has done a great job. The new defensive coordinator, I think, was largely a home run hire for them. And for 11 games, it looked like he had really fixed their woes. So I think that loss to Michigan, the way they were pushed around up front, is maybe giving people some pause for concern about how they're going to do matching up against a Georgia team that is really well built on both sides, the line of scrimmage, offensive line, defensive line.
Joey, a lot of times when a team loses, whether expectedly or unexpectedly, at the end of the season, they, it sometimes is a wake-up call, even though it was a bad one against their bitter rival in Michigan. Do you think that this loss could potentially, be a wake-up call to, propel them to actually, make a run in this college football playoff? Because we saw it last year with Georgia. They lost to Alabama and then turned it around and won a national title.
I think what you're hoping for, if you're Ohio State and you're trying to envision a scenario in which that loss to Michigan serves as a rallying point for them, I think what they've talked about is they thought, I think, in the aftermath of that game that they were left for dead. I mean, players walked off the field in Columbus after that loss crying. A lot of seniors thought it was their last game, probably in an Ohio State uniform. And then Ryan Day's called it a second lease on life. Now you're playing again with everything really on the line, a shot at the national title, which was certainly the top goal going into the year. And heck, who knows, if Michigan beats TCU, you could even play the Wolverines again. So I think maybe there's a scenario in which Ohio State is a little looser, a little freer. They're not as wound tight as maybe they were against Michigan. And players did talk about that after that game. This was sort of a rare situation where Ohio State was coming off a loss to Michigan and having to defend that. And players talked about maybe pressing too much, looking for a big play, and that cost them against the Wolverines. So the mental, I think, aspect of this game will be really interesting. Just what kind of Ohio State team shows up tomorrow night.
So Ryan Day, and a lot of this is obviously fan speculation, but I immediately, the next morning after the Michigan game and the weeks that followed would see little things about, Ryan Day is not really the guy for Ohio State. That, maybe they should see what happens with the Titans, get Mike Vrabel, and all these different kind of articles popping up. He's not lost that much at Ohio State to where he's not the guy. Should really be in the conversation at normal schools, but does he need to win back, even if it's not this weekend? Does he have to earn back the trust of the fans now after 2 losses in a row to Michigan?
I think he definitely does. And I think it's just part of what is challenging about being the Ohio State football coach is you are judged so much on that game and that rivalry to Michigan, especially in modern times, because the Buckeyes have really turned that rivalry one-sided in this century. I mean, ever since Jim Tressel got there in 2001, they'd only lost twice. Tressel lost in 2003. Luke Fickell lost as interim coach in 2011. Ryan Day's predecessor, Urban Meyer, never lost to Michigan when he opened a restaurant in Columbus. He called one of the rooms in the restaurant a 7-0 room, nod to his record against Michigan. So that game is a big, big deal. And I think for Ryan Day, I think for a lot of people, it feels like it's invited questions about how seriously they take the rivalry. He's not from Ohio, he's from New Hampshire. So people like Mike Vrabel, people like Luke Fickell in the minds of a lot of fans are sort of coveted because they're Ohio born and bred, and that rivalry's in their blood and that sort of thing. So I think that's the challenge that Ryan Day has in terms of the narrative that he has to win back. But I think it's largely due to maybe his I think public, if you were to survey public opinion polling more so than any sort of like job jeopardy sort of thing.
Yeah. So but for a fan, say he gets an NFL job, which, he seems to be a guy to me that could transition pretty well to the league. Would there be a section of the fans like, oh, good, now we can get the real coach?
There would be. I don't think there's any question about that. Just because it's a strange deal when your record's 45-5, but 2 of those losses are to Michigan, and a lot of people care about that. And I think a lot of people feel like, and whether this may be fair or not, a lot of people feel like that record is a lot of empty calories because it's padded with wins against Big Ten teams like Northwestern and Indiana and Rutgers and Maryland, but they look at his record against Michigan, which is 1-2, and that's just how a lot of coaches at Ohio State are judged. But I think people would still certainly the contingent among the fan base would be, yep, see you later. But I think a lot of people still would miss him because Ryan Day is somebody who brought offensive style of football to Columbus. The passing game, the success they've had with quarterback play, wide receivers. I mean, those are 2 of the most important positions in the sport, and they've broken records and certainly modernized things. But they've fallen short against their rival, and they've won 1 playoff game.
Joey, can you just describe the sure pandemonium of Columbus if we see a rematch of this rivalry game for a national championship?
That is going to be, I think, a surreal scene. I saw Bill Bender from the Sporting News had an article today. He called it college football Armageddon. But it certainly will, I think, which is a pretty good line. I think it speaks to the intensity of things in that game. Ryan Day certainly got a lot of heat for losing to Michigan. It would be something to get another crack at them and get revenge. It would also be something, too, to be the first Ohio State coach to lose to Michigan twice in a season. So I think just the stakes of everything would be elevated to the umpth degree. Would
the knock against Ohio State be going into Georgia is that, and it's not their fault. Like they don't make the outside of the non-conference schedule, which is years in advance. They don't make the schedule, but that outside of Michigan and Penn State, this is not a team. And Maryland really gave them a run, but they have not been really pushed by an elite team for the majority of the 12 games they played this year.
Yeah, and I think you're right about non-conference scheduling. It's you're scheduling so far out in advance. Ohio State has a series with Georgia scheduled for 2030 and 2031. But, they did open their season against Notre Dame, and I think that the dynamic with that game was a little different because it was Marcus Freeman's debut. I think Notre Dame improved over the season and stretches in October and November. But if they were facing a Brian Kelly Notre Dame team from 2 years ago, I think that would have been a much significant challenge in week one. And Ohio State benefited from their crossover games in the Big Ten. Illinois had a big year. They didn't play Illinois from the Big Ten West. So those are kind of some of the things that I think led to their schedule being what it was, where you basically played 2 games in the Big Ten that really of note, Penn State and Michigan, and they split those.
Yeah. So, Joey, before we let you go, Kevin Warren rumored to be on the Bears list for their new president. I cannot imagine a conference commissioner having that job for a shorter amount of time and changing not only his conference, but the entire sport like Kevin Warren would if he does, in fact, go back to the NFL and work for the Bears.
Yeah, it's interesting to contrast. If this is the end of Kevin Warren's tenure running the Big Ten, to contrast that with Jim Delaney, who was the Big Ten commissioner for 3 decades, came in 1989 and went out in 2019. For Kevin Warren, who feels like he's been here for a cup of coffee. But shoot, the 2 years he had, he came in and expanded the conference, got a new TV deal, and then I guess that's it. So he came in and did quite a bit of stuff. And now I guess he's got one foot out the door potentially, but he packed a lot in. It was almost like if he is gone, a little bit of a hired gun came in to do a TV deal, and I think that largely expanded them to a nationwide conference.
Absolutely. Joey Kaufman. Joey, enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Hey, thanks for having me. It should be a fun tilt tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch, with us here, and we did not get into Kevin Warren yet.
No.
We're gonna. We're absolutely gonna. And that, to me, I cannot imagine rolling into a job, not only changing, like, by all accounts, like, and you can think about Kevin Warren what you want to, but he's essentially like a one-term president who came in and then changed things that, like, we still do today. Like, he's essentially John F. Kennedy. Like, there's still things that we do today because of Kennedy. Kennedy was only president for one term, right?
Not even an entire term.
Not even an entire term. And again, you can feel about the politics of it all, how you feel. But the fact is, what Kevin Warren did in his term as Big Ten commissioner has changed college football forever. Mm-hmm. It's not going back. And Kevin Warren did all that in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, like Ty Pennington in Extreme Home Makeover. He just comes in, makes all these changes, and then, as quickly as he was in our lives, he's just gone.
Yeah, Kevin Warren's like, move that bus. Look, USC, UCLA, TV deal. What do you know? 12-team playoff, exactly the way I wanted it. All right, I'm going to go work for the Bears. Good deal. All right. You guys have fun doing all your little thing now. I've tripled my salary.
This was cute. This was fun.
This is great. You guys are the Big Ten. All right. I'm not going to deal with all you arguing university presidents anymore. See you later. All right. Bye. Yeah, that to me is just amazing. That dude, whatever you think of him, he's a boss. Like, he is an absolute boss. When we come back, a guy who was a boss here for Baylor, and I would say one of maybe 2 total bright spots for the Houston Texans this year. Jalen Petrie joined Smokey. It's a short little interview, but we'll hear from Jalen Petrie next. This is 365 Sports.
If you're out looking for a great selection of new cars and trucks this holiday season, then shop Allen Samuels in Waco, because we have some of the best deals in Central Texas that will put you in a new vehicle and driving away with confidence. Save big during the Big Finish sales event this month on the new 2022 Chrysler 300 Touring L with total values up to $4,000, plus $500 bonus cash to first responders. Hurry in and wrap up some of the best deals of the year at Allen Samuels in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's Tasty Oak Smoked Barbecue.
Next in line.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Former Baylor All-American and Texan safety Jalen Petrie, 365 Sports. Let's get straight to this. Your thoughts about Matthew Powledge coming back and being the defensive coordinator for Coach Aranda in Baylor?
I'm excited for him. You know, he was my coach, my position coach at Baylor, and he the best of the best. Like, he's a true player's coach, you know, really cares for his players. And, you know, he knows the game of football very well and knows how to put his players in great positions. So, looking forward to what he's going to do for the team.
You were a part of that incredible team, the best team Baylor's ever had, and then last year everything kind of went off the rails a little bit at 6-7. And what you saw from afar, if anything at all, that you want to add to what happened to Baylor football this year?
Nothing happened. I think, you know, it's just a couple growing pains. You know, obviously they don't have as old of as a team as we had last year. You know, we had a lot of experienced players on that team. So it's a bit different, but I know that they're going to continue to, improve and get better.
You're one of the great stories in Baylor football history, honestly, and everyone knows the story. But here you are in the NFL and making plays, and I'm sure Sauce Gardner is going to get a lot of attention for Defensive Rookie of the Year, but your name is in the conversation. Was it that easy of a transition for you to just continue your success?
I wouldn't say it was necessarily easy, but I would say that, football is football. And if you know how to, study and apply, your study into the game, I think it becomes a little bit easier when you could, know what's going on out there on the field. So, huge credit to my coaches that I have right now and the work that they've helping me, put in. And I think that's what's, fostering into my success.
Last year at this time, you were getting ready for the Sugar Bowl. This year, you're getting ready for the next to the last game of the regular season. Is the grind physically, mentally, is it the same? Is it different? How do you compare the two?
I would say the grind is similar. It is a bit of a little bit more professional at this level. It is a little bit different, but for the most part, I would say it's pretty similar. Yeah. I would say it's more similar than different, though.
How much did Matt Rule's focus on players, no matter who you were playing special teams, help you as a second-round pick, making sure you contribute in the NFL with the Texans on special teams?
I think it played a huge role with, Coach Rule and Coach Aranda. They always, was big on, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, to, put your best foot forward. And I think, that applies to, NFL, whether you're special teams guy, you're a defensive role player, offensive role player, quarterback, punter. It doesn't matter. Wherever you're doing, make sure you're doing it full speed and to the best of your ability. So them, continue to harp on that, helps me a lot. And I think that's a huge reason why I'm in the position that I am in right now.
By the way, there was a thread on Twitter. I brought you up, and one guy told me he thinks that Baylor at some point needs to have a statue of Jalen Petrie because of your loyalty, your commitment, and also how dynamic a player you were. What are your thoughts even about that being brought up?
I think that's a blessing. All the hard work that I put in the past, to even be mentioned in that light, is a blessing. And, I'm very thankful for that.
There's a guy named Damian Smith. He was having throat cancer, and his radiation tech was, I think, your aunt? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, my auntie.
Yeah, your auntie. You never know, do you, Jalen, who you might touch in your lifetime?
Yeah, you don't. So it's always good, be kind to others and, just be as loving as possible because you never know who you may run into.
What did it mean to be a part of Baylor University, Baylor football, Baylor everything? What did Baylor mean to you?
Oh, it meant the world for me because, that was a time in my life where, I was growing. I was getting to know myself. And, they helped me so much, helped me become the man that I am today. And I'm thankful for everything that, Baylor did for me. So, I wouldn't be anything, without Baylor. So I'm very appreciative for my time there. And like I said, they helped me grow so much.
Having fun? You enjoying your life? Enjoying football? Enjoying the NFL?
Oh, yeah. I'm loving it, man. I'm blessed. I get to play football and, I get paid to, play the game that I love. So, I'm enjoying it.
Jalen Petrie, All-American, Texan safety on 365 Sports.
Yeah, it's Jalen Petrie. I got to tell you about Jalen. If you're most of you watching the show will never get a chance to meet Jalen. We're all lucky enough to have done it. He is one of the nicest human beings, great human being. Mm-hmm. He's going to do great things for the city of Houston, great things for the Texans, whoever he plays for in his whole career. I do believe, though, the way it started, the Texans should be crazy not to make him their, Ed Reed, you're the guy.
He's the new J.J. Watt. He should be the new face of the defense.
New face of the Texans, by the way. J.J. Watt retiring here in a couple weeks, and they should build a statue of J.J. Watt outside of Reliant for what he did for that franchise. And I think Jalen Petrie, he's just got that, there's just something about him, not just football-wise. Football-wise, he got better every single year, but just human being-wise, he's going to do great things in the world.
Yeah, it's a travesty right now, but he's not getting hardly any defensive rookie of the year odds right now. And I think it's largely because he plays for the Houston Texans.
I mean, that's the other 11 guys on that or 10 guys on that defense hurting him there.
But when the other guys play for Sauce Gardner, Jets, Aiden Hutchinson, Lions, those are not great teams either, but they're the ones getting all the love.
They're in the playoff hunt, and the Texans The Texans don't even know what that is. Like, if you told them, like, if you win enough games during the regular season, they'd let you play at least one more. They'd be like, what? What? Serious?
And you get and you get more money.
Yeah. You're kidding. I don't know. That's how it worked. All right. So real quick, transfer portal quarterback news. Tanner Mordecai, SMU in the portal.
Yes.
It looks like he's going to Wisconsin.
That'd be a great get for them.
That's the reports out there, reportedly going to Wisconsin. I don't think that report is going to change.
No.
I can't confirm it, but I don't think that report is going to change. So reportedly, ESPN has it out this morning. He's going there, but on Wisconsin. And I think if that, again, I don't think the report's going to change. Tanner Mordecai to Wisconsin, especially after getting Nick Evers. They've got 2 Texas quarterbacks now, but it allows Nick Evers to develop under Phil Longo, and it allows Tanner Mordecai to go in there and help the Badgers win year 1 with Luke Fickell.
I like it. I think it's setting them up great. And not only that, but you're going to have a 3rd Texas quarterback coming in the 2024 class with Maubrey Matter out of the Woodlands. So I think it's all those guys have a lot of similar styles. They're all great leaders, and I'm just going to be interested to see the development under Luke Fickell because just look what he did with Desmond Ridder. Without Luke Fickell, I don't think Desmond Ridder had the career that he ended up having at Cincinnati. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's a great situation. Now, how long it's going to take for them to get that program up to competing with Ohio State and Michigan is going to be intriguing, but I think they could definitely do it, and they're on the right trajectory now.
I think Luke Fickell is looking at winning 9 games next year. When you've got quarterback kind of set, like you can win 9 games with Tanner at least at quarterback.
Yeah, that's a team that hasn't had a really impressive quarterback since Russell Wilson.
True. Yeah, Braylon Allen's coming back. That they're loaded along the lines anyway. That was the weirdest coach firing of the year because Paul Chryst wasn't doing a bad job. He had just kind of regressed to the mean a little bit and, kind of had to move on from there. But Jim Leonard, we all thought was going to get that job. And then they kind of went bigger because they wanted something more established as the conference changes here in after the 2023 season in the Big Ten. But I like the move for Tanner Mordecai. Jack Plummer going to Louisville to play for Brian Brom. He was at Purdue, then he went to Cal. Now he's going to finish out at Louisville. So that should be a pretty smooth transition for the Cardinals there. Sam Hartman from Wake Forest is in the portal. It looks like he's probably going to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like 2 announcements in one. It was Sam Hartman is in the portal, and he's most likely going to Notre Dame. Those are usually 2 different announcements, but it was packaged together as if it was already a done deal.
Yeah, this is absolutely a home run for Notre Dame. Sam Hartman is a fantastic player. If you've not watched Wake, you're missing out on one of the better quarterbacks in the country in Sam Hartman. He needed to go, and look, Wake was fine with it. Like, they were fine with it. He did everything he could for Wake. They got the most out of each other that they possibly could, I think. But for him to be an NFL quarterback, he needs to run an offense that's not the slow mesh, that is more in tune to the NFL. And the slow mesh is a fun offense. Love Dave Clawson, what he's doing there at Wake Forest. But, and this is also, look, Wake Forest has right now very limited NIL resources. Notre Dame does not. So
they have all the resources, Paul.
So Sam Hartman needs to go and capitalize because we don't know. Like right now, he has the blood clot issue that he had. He's maybe an NFL quarterback right now.
Right.
And Notre Dame can prove that he is. But he's got to strike while the iron's hot. So I think this is a great thing. If this is what the portal and NIL and all this, to me, works out for, is a guy like Sam Hartman. Like that's what it's really for.
Yeah, and with the depth of this year's quarterback class in the draft, I think it's a home run for him because he gets on a bigger college football stage. He gets a chance to improve his draft stock for next year, because if he had gone to the NFL this year, he probably would have gotten buried in the the mid to late rounds just because of how deep this class is.
Yeah. Also, I know you guys probably talked about it yesterday with Smokey, but I love Hudson Card to Purdue with Graham Harrell. Love it, love it, love it. I think he's going to do great in that offense. I think that the defense is going to be really good at Purdue under Ryan Walters. So there's been some good transfer quarterback moves here in the last couple of days.
There really has. I mean, even going back to DJU headed out to Oregon State, I think that we're really setting up for the Pac-12 to be really intriguing from quarterbacks. But I don't know that we're really appreciative or have the realization of how lucky we are to have so many talented quarterbacks coming back next year. college football is going to be insane next year.
Well, and look, that's another great thing about NIL.
Yes.
Like, we're keeping guys from making, like.
You're getting older and staying.
Yes, exactly.
I got to ask the question, though. We've been talking about how great these moves are and how good everyone's going to be, but percentage-wise, historically,
going to work out.
Who's going to be the one that busts or underwhelms? I got to ask.
There'll be a handful. There's going to be a handful of that.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a name, guys.
Oh, a name.
Look, DJU to me is the one who makes me the most nervous. Spencer Sanders, too, depending on where he decides to go.
Spencer Sanders, man.
Where he decides to go. I really like Spencer Sanders. He's super talented, but he needs to, and I'm glad he's being judicious about this, he needs to pick a place that's going to maximize that year for him. And those spots are kind of drying up. I mean, like, they're
maybe A&M at this point.
But again, I don't know if they're really in for one.
True.
You know, like, are they? Like, they
should be.
Look, I don't think Jimbo Fisher could say no to anything right now, and I don't think he will. I don't think he'll be as active in the portal as maybe he should be, or maybe A&M fans would want him to be. But Spencer Sanders, I think would do really well. And look, I'm going to say this, and we'll talk about it a little bit later because of the top 5. But I said it on the postgame show last week, I don't think Baylor's in a position where they just say Blake Shapen's the starter.
They need to figure something out.
Yeah, look, if Blake Shapen winds up being your starter, great. If he improves and all that, like, he's like, they've had worse, and Blake needs to grow up, and I think that that's possible, and they certainly believe that he can. But I don't think Baylor, like, if you listed Spencer Sanders, Grayson McCall, like if there's a guy who can come and push him, and if he, doesn't win the starting job and gets in the portal himself, and you have to, balance that out, to me, I think that's the price that you pay in modern college football.
Yeah, but at this point, if you're Baylor, can you afford to just grab one guy?
No, they got to
grab like 2.
I think they're got to get 2. I think they got to get 2. I think they got to get somebody who's like a freshman right now that's a developmental, was maybe a 3-4 star guy that didn't win the job where they are, and now there's one of the kids I suggested is Brady Allen, who came out of Purdue. Like, that's a kid you can come in and develop, and then you get a guy who's your a one and done, or maybe a 2 and done if he's got 2 years based on the COVID year or whatever left. All right, we got a break right here. When we come back, Anthony Dasher, UGAsports.com of the Rivals Network, will talk Georgia with us, and as they prepare for the Fiesta Bowl. Paul Catalina, Jacob Wilson, Garrett Ross, all you guys in the chat room, thanks for joining us this morning. This is 365 Sports.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Botch, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts, and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs. Knowing you, that's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome back. Jacob Wilson, Garrett Ross alongside Anthony Dasher. Covers Georgia for Rivals.com. And Anthony we get to know each other pretty well at the Sugar Bowl a couple years ago when Baylor and Georgia played, and has been a frequent guest on the program since then. Great to have you on, Anthony. This is a Georgia team that has had very little resistance on their path to defending the title. And they play in a great league, obviously. But, the Tennessee game was the moment where I thought, like, maybe there might be a changing of the guard in the SEC East. And the Bulldogs said, no, not yet. How do you feel about them heading into this game against Ohio State, which is, back from the dead after getting rolled by Michigan in their last game?
Well, it's going to be quite the challenge. Tennessee, came into that game in Athens, the media darling. I mean, people thought, like you said, that there was a new king in town. But Georgia, to its credit, was able to, play one of its better games. But Ohio State, man, I'm telling you, just look at them on field. Even though they've got some injury issues, those wideouts, C.J. Stroud, very, very explosive team. We saw Georgia have some issues, against LSU as far as their pass defense win. Those Tigers threw for over 500 yards. Of course, there were some outliers in that when they kind of, led to that. The game was out of hand, and I think, I won't say relaxed. That's not fair to say that Georgia can only take away anything from what LSU, did. But that game got kind of wonky, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But, Georgia, again, is going to have to play its best game, have to really, be prepared, because Ohio State, kind of like Georgia last year after losing, in the SEC championship to Alabama, and kind of used that as motivation. Flip side this season, Ohio State's definitely using motivation from that loss to Michigan and trying to apply it to the CFP playoffs this year.
Yeah. So one of the interesting stories I think about Georgia this year is everybody kind of thought of Stetson Bennett as a bus driver, which he has now come in and been a Heisman finalist. So not that there haven't been bus drivers in that role before. I mean, Gino Toretta won the thing, but he, I think, shook that reputation a little bit. How much of this game maybe drives him a little bit to be like, look, if I'm a bus driver, I'm the best dang bus driver in the history of the world because I'm going to have, well, I mean, if they do, of course, go on and win the playoff, but lead my team into the playoffs 2 years in a row.
Oh yeah, like Stetson Bennett, that game manager, tag, I think he pretty much wiped that out, last year and this season. I mean, he's been a playmaker. I mean, if anybody who's watched Georgia, I think any amount of time this year can tell that. And I don't think that kind of thing maybe bothers him as much as it used to. I mean, he's a kid who's very confident in his talent. He's obviously very experienced. He's 25 years old, for crying out loud. I mean, he's older. I don't know how many starting quarterbacks in the NFL, at this point in time. But again, and in fact, Kirby Smart, mentioned this just a while ago in the final press conference, how comforting it is for him to have someone like a Stetson Bennett who has been there, done that, knows the offense. The only person who knows it better than Stetson is offensive coordinator Todd Monken, and very confident what Stetson brings to the table, and excited to see what he's able to do tomorrow night.
Anthony, the last time that there was a back-to-back national championship was USC, but for the people who recognize that one of those was vacated, the time before that, the last time it was done was Nebraska in the early 90s. And so what would it mean for Georgia to, end that streak, that very long back-to-back championship defense route? What would it mean in Athens to become the next team to do so?
Well, Alabama actually did it in 2011, 2012. And Kirby was actually a part of those Crimson Tide teams as the defensive coordinator. Now, again, that's something else he spoke about, today. Obviously, yeah, it'd be huge. I mean, people have talked about how Georgia's now, I'm not by any stretch right now Alabama stupid for anybody else to do so, because they're going to be right back, and especially we're in the picture, this season. But Georgia, can take another step and establish themselves as one of the premier countries, in the country, obviously, and then in the conference. And repeating is difficult. I mean, it's hard. That's why not many teams, like you said, have been able to do that. Last year, first time for Georgia, had a lot to prove. This year, coach believes the fact they lost so many players from last year, and they got so many new guys playing key roles, but that has not been as much of a problem as far as guys, starting to feel too much of themselves and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it'd be huge if Georgia were to do it, especially with a team I think not a lot of people thought they had a chance to do.
Where does Ohio State provide matchup problems for Georgia?
Oh, gracious. Just look at those wideouts. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Ibuka, man, those two cats are dangerous. I mean, Marvin Harrison, just look at those numbers. Just incredible what he's done. And C.J. Stroud, Georgia's played some very good quarterbacks. Hendon Hooker was great. And there's some other ones they played in the conference this year. But C.J. Stroud, he's a pro quarterback in my opinion. He's easily look at some of the throws he's able to make. I mean, Georgia's secondary, they really going to have his work cut out for him, but because he can make plays, Georgia's going to have to find a way, if not sacking, just to disrupt him. Because if he is able to sit back in that pocket and make throws, Georgia could be in for a long night.
One of the fun players to watch for the Bulldogs is Brock Bowers. And look, they're great at tight end. I mean, so good that Eric Gilbert, off in the portal, but that's really, when you follow that story, not all that much of a surprise after all that he's been through. But Brock Bowers is a matchup problem for everybody. What's it been like to watch him this year?
The word you hear to describe Brock is unicorn. And really him and Darnell Washington both, to be quite honest with you. But what Brock does is something, you don't see from too many tight ends. At least I have not since I've been covering, UGA. And just get the ball anywhere in his vicinity, he's going to catch it. He's made some of the toughest, receptions I think I've seen. I've covered Georgia for 25, plus seasons now. But the fact he's so fast, you're talking about a guy who runs at least a 4 or 5, maybe a little bit, below that. They use him on jet sweeps. He scored 3 touchdowns rushing this year. Has had a 75-yard, touchdown run in his career. You look at some of the receptions he's had, and he just makes long plays, 75, 80 yards. He's taken scores for over the course of his career. But he's just a tremendous matchup problem. His size and speed is something you really don't see a lot of in college football.
All right, so how do you expect this game to kind of play out stylistically? Do you think it'll be more of an offensive game, or do you think that, even though, Ohio State struggles against Michigan notwithstanding, that these two pretty great defensive minds going against each other can maybe slow some things down?
We'll see. right now, sitting here today, I think there's going to be a lot of points from both teams. Maybe I'm jaded a little bit about what happened in the SEC championship game with LSU having success that it did in Ohio State. I think being a better team, obviously, than LSU was, especially on the offensive side. I see a lot of points. It's going to be a cliche answer, but it's going to come down to turnovers. Who makes the fewest mistakes. I do think it'll be a very exciting game, and looking forward to seeing it.
Is the Ohio State fan base one that's large enough that can maybe lessen what will be a gigantic, local advantage for the Bulldogs?
There's going to be a big contingent. I mean, here at the hotel and just around downtown Atlanta, starting yesterday, you start to see a lot of folks start to filter in, a lot of Buckeye boosters, here right now. So, we'll see. I mean, the bench seats around 75,000. Majority of that will be Georgia fans, but I fully expect you'll see 10, 12, 15,000, Buckeye fans here. So we'll see. I know for the SEC championship game, it was loud, and I expect it to be even more so, come tomorrow night.
Anthony, for the national championship, assuming the Bulldogs take care of business against the Buckeyes, who provides a more challenging matchup for Georgia if they make it to the national championship? TCU or Michigan?
Easy answer, probably Michigan, I guess, it's because of what they've done. But TCU, I know, is a team that's kind of like Ohio State, playing with a humongous chip on its, shoulder right now. People, I'm sure those guys think that everyone has already kind of counted them out and written Michigan into that national title game. So sometimes that kind of motivation can play big. But if you just want to look at what the teams have done, you look at what they have personnel wise. I think you say Michigan, but that might be just fine with Georgia considering what happened last year in the Orange Bowl. If Georgia's fortunate enough to get there.
Well, Anthony, I always appreciate you hopping on the show and enjoy the game. Should be a great one, and should be rowdy in Atlanta tomorrow night, I would think.
It's going to be crazy.
All right, Anthony Dasher, UGAsports.com, Rivals, part of the Rivals Network, and always great to talk to Tony. We hung out a lot at the media availability there in Georgia, and that was right. Matt Rule's kind of big, crescendo there. I think Georgia is going to win the game, maybe in the end a little bit comfortably because of their ability to kind of run right at you, and Ohio State's inability to maybe stop that kind of an attack, but I do think it's going to get kind of wild.
I think if Ohio State comes into this game with the right mindset, they are going to have a very, very good chance of beating Georgia here.
Yeah. Talk amongst yourselves for a second about that. While I get Zach on the phone.
Yeah, Garrett, how do you think the Buckeyes fare?
I think when you look at this, I think it's going to be an intriguing matchup. If Ohio State can figure out a way to eliminate the success of Georgia's tight ends, I think they have a really legitimate chance to win this game. I think that's one thing that Georgia really, when you look at them, that's what separates them is their play of the tight ends. They're really across the board about even with the Buckeyes when you look at it according to what I'm thinking, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com joins us now. Forgive that weird last shot. That's not Garrett's fault. That's my fault. I did not plan out the breaks the right way for the amount of guests we have, so I had to back it to back.
Oh, good, Paul.
Two of them. So a little inside baseball for the chat room there about how the show works. Sometimes got a lot of stuff in the air. But Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com, one of my favorite college football websites in that news all the time, ultimately wonderful in its simplicity to use. And Zach Barnett over there from Football Scoop has joined us a few times. Zach, college football playoff coming up, and we'll get to that in a second. But a lot of coaching moves going on. Here at Baylor, we'll start there. Matt Pallage comes back, and he's the defensive coordinator here at Baylor, taking over for Ron Roberts. What do you think about that hire for Dave Aranda moving forward?
I mean, anytime maybe this is fair or unfair on my part, but as long as Dave Aranda is the head coach of the Baylor Bears, I'm going to view it as it's Dave Aranda's defense, and he is hiring, formerly Ron Roberts, now going to be Matt Pallage as to execute Dave's vision for the Bears defense. I mean, what's your guys' opinion? Do you think that's fair or unfair?
Oh, I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that's fair. Like he's, like Kirby Smart at Georgia, or anybody who that's a genius when it comes to something. He's just picking a vessel, right, to do what he wants them to do.
Yeah, and so that's a great word for it. So Matt Pallard will be Dave Aranda's vessel, and so he was there in 2020 when Baylor was not very good, and he was there obviously in 2021 when Baylor won the Big 12 with maybe a top 5 defense in all of college football. And so I personally can't speak to what went wrong with Baylor in 2022 and the breakdown between with what happened with Ron Roberts, because Ron Roberts is an accomplished coach, and I don't believe he got stupider in between 2021 and 2022. But I'll defer to Dave's expertise, and sometimes you just need to change. And so I expect Baylor to be better on defense in 23.
I think with Matt coming in, part of it is just they needed a new voice in that room. And Ron, I think it was amicable between Dave and Ron. They're friends. It was just time to have a new voice. And Ron, look, he's at Auburn under Hugh Freeze. So it's not like he was kicked back down to Delta State. I mean, he wound up pretty well there. Also, Christian Robinson coming in as the linebackers coach, a young guy who's been around the SEC. But again, that's another one, Zach, that's kind of just there for the vessel. But I think the biggest part about these guys is that they're young, and we're seeing, if you look around the country and you follow this as close as anybody, younger coaches now getting coordinator jobs and assistant jobs maybe faster than they would have in the past, not just because of what they can do on the field, but recruiting is at an all-time high as far as the pace of it goes, and you need younger guys who can keep up with that pace.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, recruiting in the old days, I'm talking the old days being like 2016, coaches used to say it was a 24/7 endeavor. And, at that time, by that definition, it was. But looking at it by today's standards, it was that was, your vacation hours, basically. You could basically, the spring recruiting is, in terms of official visits, I mean, that goes from pretty much spring ball all the way basically up until 4th of July weekend. You get a little bit of a slowdown in July, and then the season cranks up. But I mean, June is a crucial month on the college football calendar now. There's very, very, very precious little dates downtime, and then obviously the portal is basically always there at your disposal for better and for worse. So yeah, it takes an enormous amount of energy, and not everybody has the energy that it takes to do this thing, 350 days a year, if we'll be conservative.
I want to stick with this topic, but when you look at Eric Morris and the job he's doing up there at North Texas, putting his staff together, when you get a guy like Justin Owens and all his connections, and you up there in the Metroplex, you know how important that is. What are your thoughts on the staff they're putting together with the Mean Green?
Yeah, Justin Owens, and then the other key one obviously is Chris Gilbert, the former Lancaster head coach, went and worked off the field at Texas, and now is going to be on the field. I mean, the I-20 corridor has never been more important in recruiting, and Chris Gilbert is just about as good as anybody in terms of unlocking those doors. And then I know Eric has offered jobs to other Texas high school coaches, and tried to get one. He ultimately chose not to take the job, but I think he's hired Drew Sabota, if I'm saying that correctly, a former Houston high school coach, a very connected coach down there in Houston. And so obviously I'm not going to insult Seth Luttrell here in any North Texas coach and say they didn't understand the importance of recruiting the Metroplex, because anyone who's ever been the head coach in North Texas has understood that. But you can see Morris's priorities in the way that he's gone out and hired, and I expect them to be fanatical about recruiting, this area, and specifically the Metroplex in a way that previous North Texas staffs were not fanatical.
Zach, outside of Deion Sanders, which we know is an earth-shattering move for Colorado, because that's going to change a lot of things over there in the Pac-12 if he is ultimately successful, and so far he's made a lot of waves. What do you think is the biggest and most impactful coaching hire of this cycle?
In terms of what's going to shape the industry, 5 years from now potentially, I would say Trent Dilfer at UAB is every bit, if not more so, radical than Deion Sanders at Colorado, because at least Deion has 2.5 solid seasons of proving that he can win at a really high level within college football. Trent Dilfer has, I think, 2 years of coaching experience at a powerhouse Tennessee high school, and he at his introductory press conference, he talked for a long time about all the things they didn't have when he took that job and how far they've come. And I'm not going to sit here and say that he's lying, because he's certainly much more of an expert than I am. But the high school, the private high school he coached at Tennessee, has facilities that a lot of college programs do not have. And now he's at UAB, which could be moving into the American, one of the power programs in that conference, because no one cares more about college football than Birmingham, Alabama. Or they could be slunked down to 2-10, 3-9 seasons if he doesn't play this correctly. And so he has very little track record. He's hired some coaches with experience and some with less, or about equal level of experience as him. And so it is a power of the personality type job, very similar to Deion. And so I'm going to be fascinated to see, how this turns out. And, we've seen, Tennessee State hired Eddie George as their head coach. Bethune-Cookman hired Ed Reed as their head coach. So if these guys are successful, it's going to change the paradigm of how programs hire moving forward.
Yeah, I love the Bethune-Cookman hire with Ed Reed, by the way. I covering the Super Bowl when he was with the Ravens in New Orleans. I once watched a Ravens fan just stare at him and cry in the restaurant we were in. That's how impactful Ed Reed is, which was weird for Ed Reed and all of us, and probably the guy. But Zach, CFP tomorrow night, Michigan and TCU. The more closely matched game, I would think. Do you think that TCU, in spite of what, the money right now is on Michigan, like a lot of, people leaning that way, this team's been scrappy all year, and they play a style that seems to be able to kind of hang with a team that plays the style that Michigan does. Do you think that they can really push them and maybe topple the Wolverines?
I mean, every time I've been thinking about this game, I've had the conversation with myself that, man, this game really has the ability to go out and be a classic game. We haven't gotten very many good games. We've gotten 2 playoff semifinals that I would consider classics in the 8 years we've been doing this. And I think Michigan TCU has that ability to be, rollicking, last team with the ball last has a chance to win the game type game. But then I also think, we could very easily see Michigan come out and run right over the Horned Frogs in a way similar to, how Georgia did to Michigan last season. And so I still think TCU can give Michigan everything they want and then some, and I think TCU can win the game. But I can't sit here and say that isn't a little bit of wish casting of hoping to see a good game and hoping to see, a program from this area and this conference represent well, because I think we all here in Big 12 country believe that these schools play a really good brand of football, and it'd be nice to see a Big 12 program win a college football playoff game, which has never happened. And so I don't think this TCU team, they're hungry, they're scrappy. There's a lot of veterans on this team. They're not. I don't think they're going to go out there and get pumped. And Michigan may be potentially the bigger, stronger team. Donovan Edwards is a matchup nightmare for anybody. What he did, just knocking out that Ohio State team with those 2 big touchdown runs. That's got to scare you if you're a TCU fan. But I just really believe TCU can go out there and make this a 31-28 type game.
The other game, Ohio State and Georgia, do you think that will be a ridiculous shootout?
This is the most interesting game for me, and the narrative around this game I find to be pretty accurate is that this game is everything for Ohio State. And they don't necessarily have to go out and win, but if they go out and get beat 34-10, something like that, then they're going to slink into full-on crisis mode, because it's been a long, long time since Ohio State has not, been at a national championship level. Name a recent Ohio State season where, you look back and say, okay, if a couple things had gone differently, we could have at least played for the national title. But if they go out and, they were pushed around by Michigan, if they get pushed around again by Georgia, they're going to spend the next 8 months thinking, oh my gosh, like what we have, our formula, we don't measure up anymore. Like we are not national championship caliber anymore. And so that is going to be the most interesting thing. Like if it's third quarter and Georgia, has the ball and leads 24-10 or something like that, like the pressure on the Ohio State sideline and the pressure on Ryan Day is going to be enormous. And so, I think Ohio State's aware of that, and they're also aware of, the 2014 parallels where no one gave them much of a chance to go out and beat Alabama. But that 2014 Alabama team is not as good as this 2022 Georgia outfit. And that Ohio State team was soaring into the playoffs and was a little bit underrated. This team is at least the last time we saw them, they were battered and bruised.
Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com. Zach, thanks for hopping on today. Enjoy the college football weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Zach Barnett here on 365 Sports. Yeah, it's going to be crazy interesting this weekend. I think there is school of thought that this is going to be like we can skip it and just watch Georgia Michigan in a couple weeks. But I don't really like. I get like why you would think, especially if you've not watched TCU, why Michigan should trounce them, right?
Yeah.
But I've watched every game TCU's played this year except Colorado, because that was on a Friday night. We were doing a high school game. I've watched every other game that they've played, and they just play in a style that you cannot count them out. Max Duggan is just like, he will not just let it like, oh, this is how it's going to be. You saw in the Big 12 championship game, that game should not have been close at the end. Should not have been close. And he willed them in to overtime. And had he not run out of every bit of gas in his tank,
I mean,
they're probably undefeated in this game.
I believe that should have been his Heisman Trophy winning game, because he just absolutely played ballsy and kept TCU alive in that Big 12 title game. Got him to overtime. It was heartbreaking to see how they actually lost the game. It was their first loss, but it didn't end up mattering because they made it to the college football playoff anyway.
Yeah. And we'll talk to our buddy Brian Estridge, who we saw last week in Fort Worth. He's in Phoenix with TCU. That comes up next. Plus, we dive into the chat, the top 5, all coming up in the last 30 minutes. This is 365 Sports.
The Big Finish sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels in Waco. Save big on Jeep models like the new 2023 2- or 3-row Grand Cherokee Limited with total values up to $5,000, plus $500 bonus cash to first responders and no payments for 90 days. Jeep SUVs are known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a 3rd row. Find the Jeep that fits your family and wrap up some of the best deals of the year at Allen Samuels in Waco.
You've probably heard it. Nobody wants to work anymore. But that's not really true, is it? Hi, Jay here from Pickup Outfitters to share a couple of opportunities. And we admit it, it's difficult to find good help right now. But it's not true that nobody wants to work, because you do, don't you? What you want, though, is a workplace that values you, invests in you, and gives you the opportunity to grow. So won't you consider Pickup Outfitters? In preparation for our new location and expanded services coming next year, we're expanding our staff by 2. And we're looking for a store store manager, plus an installer and suspension technician. We offer competitive pay and bonuses and great benefits. We have health, vision, and dental insurance, matching 401k program, generous PTO policy, and the opportunity to attend trade shows, plus lots of other perks. But just as important, we work to improve our employees and treat them with respect. We take pride in our family atmosphere. I mean, we are a locally owned company, so please check out our opportunity online on Indeed or come by Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
The voice of TCU, Brian Estridge, joins us here on 365 Sports. And we saw Brian last week at the Armed Forces Bowl in what became a frozen, bitter hellscape. But now he's in Phoenix, which doesn't really have that problem. And the weather's nicer all the way around as they prepare for the college football playoff tomorrow night. Brian, I played your call in the open today that I told you before I really enjoyed of the kick in Waco that won the game, where it was very much like you and Sonny Dykes were kind of synergistic in that moment of like you kind of knew what was going on. Sonny Dykes knew. None of the rest of us did. Like watching it in real time, we're like, what's he doing? Running the ball. They don't have a timeout. And you kind of counted down. But that is the kind of mantra of this team is, it's okay. Everything's fine. As long as there's time on the clock, everything's fine.
Yeah, and they played like that all year, Paul, man. Great to hear your voice, by the way. And I'm dropping your name in Scottsdale left and right. It's not doing a lot of good for me, but still I'm doing it. But you're right, man, totally. I mean, this is a confident football team, and it's been that way really from the offseason. With Kaz Kazadi coming on board as a strength and conditioning coach, and you guys know him well, the mentality that he brought to this program, it really set the tone for this group. And so now they think that, and you and I've talked about this before, they think their stuff is the best. They think their schemes are the best. They think their preparation's the best. They think their nutrition's the best. They think their strength and conditioning's the best. They think their speed is the best. And because of that, they play with a ton of confidence, and they don't ever think they're out of a game. You saw Max Duggan in that game against Kansas State trying to do his best to will them to win. He came up a little bit short, but I think that's the way they approach every game every week.
Brian, they, if you follow, we were just talking about this in the last segment. If you follow the money on Vegas in this one, look, it's heavy Michigan, right? And probably based on everything we know, that makes a lot of sense. But I've watched every game that TCU's played this year, except Colorado, because I was doing a high school game. And they just have a style about them that outside of the emotional part of like the easy going, they know how to kind of trade blows with you, and they kind of figure out your fighting style pretty early. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, Paul. I think they can play any game you name. You saw that against Texas, where Texas tried to run the football and they shut that running game down. You've seen that, offensively, where Kendra Miller, has 100 yards, has a touchdown in every game this year, and a boatload of 100-yard games. They've been able to run the football. Max Duggan's thrown for big yardage, and only 4 interceptions on the year and 30 touchdowns. So it's kind of anything you want. They'll try to figure out a way to make it work for them as well. They're not going to go into any game thinking that they're shut down, and that's why I think this matchup, and you hear all the pundits, and you talk about Vegas, and they're all saying, well, this is Michigan's size and girth versus TCU's speed, and the size will win out. And I think that's unfair to both teams. I think Jim Harbaugh has done a pretty good job recruiting speed. They've gotten a lot faster at Michigan. And so I think that's a slam on them. I think TCU's offensive and defensive lines have been pretty good this year. And so when you just talk about their speed, I think that's a slam on them. So I think that there's a lot more to this. Jim Harbaugh and Sonny Dykes just met the media in a press conference, and Harbaugh quoted his old coach, Bill Parcells, and you remember this well from your days covering the Cowboys, Paul, when Parcells said, you are what your record says you are. Mm-hmm. And if you're 12-1 and 13-0, that's what you are. Don't be trying to poke holes in it. Don't be trying to say, hey, you can't do this, or you're not good at this. Or if you're 12-1 and you're 13-0 and you won your regular season conference schedule, undefeated, like both of these teams did, then that's what you are. And so I think that's what we're going to see, 2 quality football teams going at it tomorrow.
Brian, I had this similar question about Ohio State earlier in the show today, and it was here in Waco, we saw the Baylor men's basketball team lose to Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship the tournament, and then that kind of propelled them to get where they needed to get. And last year, Georgia lost to Alabama. This TCU team did so well this year with handling adversity until that final game, and it was a battle. But do you think that loss will ultimately benefit them heading into this game against Michigan?
Obviously, we won't know until afterwards, but I think your thinking is right. I think this group was sort of chomping at the bit to get back out there. And then once they learned that they did make the playoff, I think that inspired them even more. I think they would have played well in any bowl game they would have been in, but I think the fact that they are here and there's still something to prove, I think that I think ultimately it could end up being a good thing for them. It also does this. It also, Michigan's going to look at the last film. They're going to see a team that got beat. So what does that do for their mentality? This is a Michigan team that doesn't know a lot about TCU. You guys probably saw the quote from one of the defensive linemen. He couldn't remember what league they were in. So I think there's something to be said about that. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think that now we won't know until obviously the game's played, but it sure does feel like that last game is going to benefit them.
Is this game going to come down to how well TCU punches back up front? Because that is Michigan's real. Any team in the country would trade offensive and defensive fronts with the Wolverines in a heartbeat and not shed a tear.
Paul, it's funny. I asked Sonny Dykes if he kind of has played the game out in his head, what he thinks is going to happen. And he said, I used to do that, but it never ended up being the way I thought. So I quit doing it. Because, everybody seems to think that that's going to be the case, that it is going to be, can TCU handle the running game of Michigan? I'm going to give you another scenario. What if TCU's quickness and speed outweighs that and TCU jumps out to a 14 or 17 point lead? this Michigan team is not built for comebacks. That's just not their style. It's not what they do. They haven't had to rely on J.J. McCarthy like that. They've only played in 2 one-score games, and one of those was against a bad Maryland team that scored late. So what if that's the scenario that plays out? What if this? Here's another one that could be kind of the equalizing factor. What if Michigan's never seen someone in the return game like Darius Davis? And what if Darius Davis has some success on kick or punt returns? The return teams for Michigan are just okay. So what if special teams pop a couple of scores? So I think there's a whole bunch of scenarios that could play out. I mean, the obvious one you're dead on, Paul. I mean, it's going to, hey, who wins up front? Can the 3-3-5 withstand, the extra offensive linemen that Michigan will bring in, but just line it up? And Sonny Dykes talked about that too, that, hey, that 3-yard handoff in the first half ends up being 5 yards in the third quarter and 7 yards in the fourth quarter because they just lean on you. And so can you withstand that? It's going to be a big challenge. He's a great center for Michigan. Played 3 years at Virginia, transferred in, All-American, Outland and Remington Award winner. He's going against a freshman nose tackle for TCU. Can Dom Williams hold up? Great question, I think.
Brian, one of the things I think is kind of fascinating about the game, you look at the 2 quarterbacks, stylistically, McCarthy and Duggan are pretty similar in that, and they also both have that like, you think you got me? No, you don't. The little extra boost right there. Duggan, obviously, a little bit more statistically accomplished, and his story well documented of not winning the job and then being the Heisman Trophy runner-up. J.J. McCarthy, more highly recruited than Max, obviously, but they do, if I watch them, they kind of remind me of each other.
I think that's fair. And I think both of them think they're going to have to do a little bit more of this in this game. I think you'll see both of them run the football more than they have toward the latter half of the year. Now, in the Kansas State game, Frogs kind of freed up Max to do that, obviously going over 100 yards. But I think that's where they're kind of at right now. I think both of these guys know that a lot's going to be expected of them in this game, and I think both of them know that they're going to have to get it done with their feet as well as their arms. I think that's going to be a great matchup to see how they handle it. Neither one of them lack confidence. There's no question about that. And both these teams love their quarterbacks. They play really hard for them. So that would be another matchup, you're right, that I would keep my eye on.
Brian, is there any aspect of this game where TCU has an advantage, whether it's a matchup or just anything that people are not exactly giving them credit for? Because, seemingly everyone thinks that Michigan is the favorite in every aspect of this game.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we've kind of touched on. One is, I think, overall team speed. I think TCU is going to be faster than Michigan. I think that's one thing. I think they've got the element of surprise in that Michigan has talked about the fact that they haven't seen the 3-3-5. I think Ohio State ran it a little bit, but they haven't seen the 3-3-5 defense. They also haven't seen the air raid that TCU goes to a degree. Per se, they don't see that in the Big Ten. I think special teams wise, I think the return games for TCU are better than Michigan's. So I think you've got that bit going for you. And I think you've got a team that's weathered the storm, that has played in tight games. It's been in one-score games. And Michigan, like we talked about just a second ago, has not been in those. So if you're looking for, advantages for TCU, that would be the 3 or 4 or 5 things I'd put my finger on.
Brian, I think for me, watching this TCU team this year, one of the biggest differences has been the culture change in the locker room and keeping the noise out. As coaches' changes start to pick up and Garrett Riley's name gets tossed out there, has there been any sort of distraction or that seeping into the locker room at all?
I don't think so, man. In fact, I talked to Sonny Dykes yesterday, and I asked him, I said, you're going to keep everybody together? And he said, yep. He said, I might be the last one to know. But right now it looks like all are going to stay. So I don't think that has been a distraction. There haven't been guys flying around interviewing for jobs or anything like that. I mean, I think this group's excited about not only this challenge, but also what the future holds. The recruiting class was extra special. They think that talent-wise, this team might actually improve. Now, that's not to say they'll have the same leadership that this group has, but talent-wise, I think they'll be better next year. I think they're excited about it.
Brian, enjoy Phoenix. I love covering the Fiesta Bowl. We've gotten to do it one time. They really do take care of you out there in Phoenix. Yeah. Camelback. The media gift I got was Ray-Bans, so you can't top it. How would you've only been there for like less than 24 hours, right?
Yeah, but they gave us a Johnny O pullover. It's pretty nice, man. Yeah, so it looks really good. So so far it's been good, and we were at Boondocks last night. And the good thing is, Paul, your tab is still open.
Oh no, that's not that can't be true.
I want to thank you for that, brother. You always go the extra mile. I appreciate you keeping that tab open.
Yeah, I'll have to swing back out to PHX and take care of that.
All right, brother.
All right, have a good one. Enjoy the pep rally.
All righty, bye bye.
That's a good friend Brian Estridge there. It's been a few years. I mean, like I don't know if I've been back to maybe once after that Fiesta Bowl. Maybe Super Bowl was before. I can't remember.
I think it might have been before.
Before, when we were out there the last time. The Super Bowl's there this year. But, Fiesta Bowl's a great – I can tell you, if you're out there and you want to get in college football media, there's a choice few bowls that you really want. I would love to go cover the Cheez-It Bowl just based on the fact that it looks like they have a blast doing it. Duke's Mayo seems like a good one. Like, they really embrace being a bowl game. Sometimes you go to a bowl game and they're like, yeah, here. Yeah. Like, here's the media packet. And it's because it's weird. Sometimes you're in a town, something like the Fiesta Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Sugar Bowl embrace the whole thing. I've never covered the Rose Bowl. I'm assuming with all the pageantry that they probably don't want me now after as critical as I've been, but
you're banned from that.
Yeah, I'm probably banned.
Sometimes the bowl game's like flying Spirit because like you get treated poorly, but it's like, yeah, you chose to fly Spirit.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, you just got stuck here, it wasn't, but Armed Forces Bowl was great to us last week. There wasn't a lot of like pre-week stuff just because of when that bowl falls. Because we just went up the day of, but they were great. So, and some bowls are like new at it, so they just don't. Like I remember going to Texas Bowl the second time around I went was way better than the first time. Like in its infancy, they were just trying to figure out things. Like one of the things they did was they had like paper credentials you had to wear all week long for 4 days.
Yeah, that seems sustainable.
How's that going to work out? Especially when it was pouring down rain the day of the game and I almost lost it and had to like show it to them like that. Anyway, those are little tips, but when we come back, top 5. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Engel with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozers and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozers. Boozers Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor Bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Jacob Wilson, and Garrett Ross here. We're back full show, 3 to 6 on Monday, to talk about college football playoff. We're going to try to do this again because there's 4 games that day, but in our, as we reassess, like college football playoff, we got to do the full thing. You know, all 3 of us back. But thank you to all of us who got up early. Phil, I know it's really early for you, Vegas time, a little Irish coffee. He did suggest they have wedding chapels in Vegas. I don't think Amanda would be totally against that. I just tell you, but the train's on the tracks now. Maybe we'll renew our vows in Vegas.
JP's the way to go, man.
Yeah.
It's certainly good.
But Red Wine, Scotty B, Paxton, AMAC, welcome aboard. Some of the new people that we've seen. David, retired stockbroker, all you guys here on the show. Troy, Red Wine, Show Memo, that were here this morning. Wet Blanket, Alan, Barry. Go Wolverines. So all there, Teddy from Texas. All there on the chat room this morning. So thank you so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Send it, share it with your friends. We appreciate it. But these are top 5 QBs that Baylor should target in the portal. Number 5, and this had to change literally today because Luke Altmaier was on this list. He is reportedly committed to Illinois. I don't think it's official yet, but he is going to Illinois. Tanner Mordecai, if I had known he was going to be in the portal, would have been on this list, even though I kind of know that he's just never – Baylor's never been his thing. It's his hometown. He likes being away. And he is reportedly going to Wisconsin. And that's something I think you'll probably hear officially on both those later today or tomorrow on each of them. But number 5, Malik Hornsby from Arkansas. Look, not a skilled passer at this point, but as gifted an athlete overall as you can have. And given what they did with Gary Bohannon in the wide zone offense, I think this kind of works.
It does. My only concern with this is if you were going to bring in Hornsby, why wouldn't you just hold on to Drones? I think Drones has more of an upside potential or about the same as to what Hornsby is now.
I do think, though, that Drones left of his own. I understand. Yeah, but like this is maybe a response to that.
Right.
And Malik's been in since December 5th. So it's been a little bit for a guy who is so highly thought of. I do think part of the reason he's probably stuck there, at least in my opinion, is teams are kind of trying to gauge of, look, if you don't win the quarterback job, can we put you on the field doing other stuff? Are you going to be happy with that?
Right. I think the reason he's been in the portal as long as he has is because he's trying to be a quarterback somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I mean, coming out of high school, his comp was Robert Griffin III. And so I don't think that necessarily has anything to do with the current state of this Baylor team. But he's a more athletic version of Kyron Drones, like you were saying. Yeah. Probably a higher ceiling, lower floor type of guy in the Kyron Drones comparison. But there is a lot to be excited about if they can develop him to be a good fit for this offense.
Yeah, and I think even though, like, if you bring a guy like this and you have Shapen, like, this is an interesting change of pace. Right. And you have somebody you can kind of, like, if Shapen kind of gets in a funk again, you can kind of pull him, change of pace for a couple series, maybe put Shapen back out, rope-a-dope some teams a little bit. I don't know. I like the potential of Malik Hornsby, but he's going to have to find the right spot. And I do think that teams are probably right now like, look, we think you can be a quarterback, but if you're not, like, we want you on the field, like, with the ball in your hands. It just may not be taking the snaps. Number 4, Austin Aune. of North Texas. This guy's like 43 years old. No, he's an older guy, 26 years old. He's got 1 year of eligibility left. And this is someone I think can push Blake Shapen. And he can certainly start and win games for you. No, like he did not. He won enough at North Texas to where you should be confident in him. But I don't know if you want to like throw him in there as like this guy's gonna help them win the conference again. But I do think you need a vet like of these two quarterbacks. Somebody needs to be a young guy to develop, and somebody needs to be a veteran. And both of them need to be able to push Blake Shapen to his max.
Yeah.
And I think this is something you can do because this is a 1 year hitch with this guy here, with a couple of guys on this list. And that might be kind of what you need to get Blake Shapen to take that next step.
Yeah. According to the internet that I'm looking at here, he's 29 actually,
29,
which actually gives me a lot of hope if only I had eligibility remaining. But best case scenario, you get Brandon Whedon from Oklahoma State a couple of years, years and years ago now. But worst case scenario, you bring a guy like this in, and he's a leadership presence in your locker room.
Yeah, I trust any quarterback who is old enough to like remember the cast of Friends. No, who watched Seinfeld when it was on the air. But Austin, I do think that's good. Look, and it's worked out. Like there are great stories. Brandon Whedon, Chris Winkie won the Heisman. Quincy Carter was an older quarterback who won at Georgia.
Not a quarterback, but Clay Fuller pretty recently in Waco came from minor league baseball to have a good football career.
Yes, and a great real estate career here locally now.
Yeah, I see his name everywhere.
Exactly. Number 3, Brady Allen. This is your young guy. This is a 4-star quarterback that Purdue recruited that is highly thought of. Now he's from the Midwest, and so you're taking him maybe out of his comfort zone, but obviously didn't fit the system that was going on and probably was told just felt like they're going to go get a transfer, and they did. Hudson Card is on his way to Purdue. So Brady Allen's a guy he's a true freshman. Like he's got some eligibility. He's a developmental dude. You can bring him in. That kind of takes away the fact you didn't sign a quarterback in this year's class. Now there's some you could probably still go out and get at the end of this, in February, which they probably also need to do. Once the transfer portal gets filled up, and look, Al Walcott is in the portal, right?
Yep.
So that's something we neglected to mention today, and that's a huge loss for Baylor. But you're going to have some room for some scholarships. I think he's not going to be the last. I think you used to see 10, 12 guys in that portal. But this is your developmental guy right here that can come in and maybe win the job. Maybe not this year, but next year. You have that you were expecting Kyron Jones or Austin Novosad to do, which is now off the table for both those guys.
Well, even Zach Pyron. I think this would be a good filler for the missing out on the 2022 quarterback. And what I like about this compared to necessarily the Hornsby is the skill set is a little similar to what you get from Shapen. So you're not going to have to change your offensive play calls to fit him. He can kind of step in and roll. But the youth aspect, I think, being able to read the defenses and get through, I think he has all of that. I think it would be an intriguing fit, and he was definitely somebody that can push Shapen and make Shapen better.
Yeah. Number 2, Brennan Armstrong. Not signed anywhere yet. I know that Oklahoma State is big in on him, apparently, and we'll see. But here's a guy who this year, Virginia, you kind of have to say is a wash. Everything that happened, coaching change, terrible tragedy, all that. And he's trying to go to a place where he can win some games and win the starting job. These next 2 quarterbacks on the list are message senders to Shapen. These are not like these guys are going to push you. If you bring in Brennan Armstrong, maybe this is a push you, but this is more likely this guy's going to start and you're going to learn about life for him.
Take some time and learn.
Or you're telling Blake Shapen, you win the job or go to the portal, which I know is not what they want to do, but I don't think that they should eliminate that as a possibility. I think you have to try and get it as good as you can as quickly as you can.
I honestly think that everybody on Baylor's roster needs nothing's guaranteed. You need everybody to come in and push. I think Brennan would be a great player to come in and push Blake. Very similar skill sets as well. I think he has a lot of upside. Oklahoma State would be an intriguing one for him as well, but that's one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Paxton did really well. Really
nailed
well.
It today?
Yeah, he did better today than he's done. You did not get number 1. I did not. Number 1 is not Spencer Sanders. I just don't see that happening.
No.
Now, if it did, great for Baylor because I think he would do well in the wide zone.
He would.
Yeah. But number one is Grayson McCall. I don't know what his plan is. I mean, like Florida was on the list, but they got Graham Mertz and, that's all I'll say about that.
Auburn was
Auburn, but he hasn't taken that visit yet. So he got injured in the bowl game. I think it was an upper body thing. So that's also going to play out as well. But I love this kid, Grayson McCall. And I do think that this is one of those where he's proven himself at Coastal and he needs to play up a level. This is probably a better transition for him, I think, than a lot of the other places that you might go. Now, playing in Philip Montgomery's offense for Hugh Freeze, if that's what he decides to do, fine. Good there. Do that. But I do think that this is someone who can really do well in Jeff Grimes' system and really light up, raise the level of the skill players around him, which Blake Shapen and the receivers never were able to raise each other's level consistently this year. I think Grayson McCall can do that. I think, and again, I know the plan for Baylor is that Blake Shapen is a starter and they need to put all that resources behind them. I just don't think that in this day and age of college football, you can take getting a guy like Grayson McCall that has so many skins on the wall as far as wins and stats and all of that. I don't think you can take that off the table. I think it would be a little bit negligent if you did. And I'm not saying that Baylor is. Right. I think that you need to consider all possibilities when it comes to it because you have all these things available to you in the transfer portal now. If you can do it, and look, I'll brag on my guy, Norvell, for a second. That dude dominates the portal.
He does.
Yeah. Dominates it. He didn't bring in Jordan Travis. That was actually Kendall Briles when he was there. But he brought in Johnny Wilson. He brought in Micah Pittman. He brought in Trey Benson. He brought in Jared Verse. He brought in all those guys that you saw making plays last night. He brought in Jamie Robinson. He brought in all those guys, and it worked out. He was aggressive in it. He found the shortcut. Now, that's not going to sustain you, but it can get you back to where you can start recruiting and balance you out if you do it right. And I think Baylor needs to maybe do that.
Yeah, and I think – so much has been said in the way of, they need to be careful who they bring in because Shapen might transfer. Didn't there used to be a mindset that competition breeds improvement?
Yeah.
I mean, Shapen was so much better as a redshirt freshman when Gary Bohannon was on the roster.
Yeah.
And seemingly he didn't have to worry about the job at all. And I just think when your mindset is right, it is supposed to be a good thing. And, Grayson McCall, I think he's got the job if Baylor lands him. But I think if Blake Shapen sticks around and has the right mindset, he could, potentially step in. Injuries happen. Anything happens. Maybe he steps in with the right mindset and takes that job back. I'm tired of the narrative that we're worried about, whether or not
hurt somebody's feelings.
Yeah, hurting someone's feelings because it seems to be
it's a business.
It seems to be the catalyst for a lot of these people transferring in the first place.
Yeah, but yeah, I like Grayson McCall a great deal. I like him almost as much as I like Devin Leary for any school.
Yep.
And Devin Leary went to Kentucky. I feel really good about it. And again, if Tanner Mordecai was in the portal, I would say to that, and he is in the portal, but he's going to Wisconsin. He was never, and look, they're going back to Midway. You just never got the feeling that was what he wanted to do. He wanted to kind of spread his wings and go somewhere else. I get it. I didn't want to go to college in my hometown. You wound up going to college in your hometown. I loved it.
I didn't want to, but it was free.
Yeah.
So,
but I get it. I wanted to Florida Gulf Coast was just built in Fort Myers. And believe me, they were all too happy to pay for anybody locally who wanted to go there.
If you have an opportunity to leave,
but I just wanted to go. I just wanted to spread
it's why I did something extreme, like join the Marine Corps at age 26, so I could get to Hawaii.
You can always go back, right?
Exactly.
And now I'm back.
When you have that, yeah, exactly. So yeah, Jacob's been here and back and there again. So thanks to Jacob, thanks to Garrett. We're back. Thanks to all of you who watched and listened today. Paul Bloss, I hope we answered your question on Kevin Warren, who I think if he takes the Bears job. I mean,
he's a genius.
That's just 5 years of, disruption on a level you can't even imagine. This is 365 Sports. Have a great weekend. Happy New Year, everybody.